Ahoy, everyone! This is David Eugene Perry with my continuing series of online Zoom interviews with friends and colleagues around the world. And today, well, I'm going to date myself with this introduction, London calling. I'm in the Zoom room with Sam Wise, one of the best podcasters I know and certainly a real leader when it comes to Being LGBT, which is the name of his podcast and interview series online. So, reporting from London, Sam, welcome.
Thank you so much, David. I'm not actually in London, though. I'm in the northeast of England, so a few hours away from London.
My apologies. Having many friends in Great Britain, I apologize profusely for that wrong geography lesson. And I should let our users know we're having a little bit of a delay here. So it's kind of like being on Star Trek and waiting for the transmission to come in a little bit through hyperspace. So be patient with us as I ask my questions and get Sam to respond. Well, first off, I found you online when I was promoting my book, Upon This Rock, Gay Mystery Thriller, and you were kind enough to respond. And, you know, this is an interview series, and I have a few hundred viewers, and who knows how it gets shared around the world. But I was incredibly impressed with how you built your podcast audience. I believe you have several thousand, if not 20,000 viewers or people who follow you on Twitter. How does one get that level of following for a podcast called Being LGBT? Sam, take it away.
I think really for me, I had a sort of following beforehand before we started the podcast in February of 2019. So I sort of had like an initial following just from doing other LGBTQ advocacy work. When I was at university, I had a show on a community radio station, which was called Being LGBT. It was a limited series of about 16 episodes. So I did gain a sort of following, but I mean, that was years ago, but it just sort of built up from there. So when I started Being LGBTQ in February of 2019, I already had like a base of people who I thought would be interested to listen to it. And it's just really gone from there. I mean, independent podcasting is very challenging. I mean, it is just me. It's a one-person operation. Just takes time. It's just all about time and persistence. And even if you get to a point where you think, you know, it's not going anywhere, believe me, something will come around the corner. I've got many points where I've just got to the point of I felt like I wasn't really progressing. So it is challenging, but persistence is key. Just keep going, and you know, the payoff is incredible.
Yeah, I always say one of the secrets to marketing anything, and certainly my experience with my book and my writing, has been the three P's, and one of them is yours. Persistence, the other is patience, and perkiness, trying to be positive. It doesn't help being the other way. And I want to talk a little bit about that. One of the things that I find wonderful about your Twitter feed and your Being LGBT series is you've been very upfront with sharing some of the challenges of your life story, health-wise. And I think that is very inspiring to a lot of people who maybe have a similar perspective and similar challenges. Talk to us a little bit about the parts of your life that you're very out talking about, other than being out LGBT.
David, I lost you completely for a little bit of that. Sorry.
Oh, that's all right. Well, now my audience is waiting with bated breath. Talk to me a little bit about some of the challenges in your life that you face and you're very out about. And I'm talking about your health and life challenges that you have shared with your audience that have been so inspiring to so many people, myself included.
Yeah, so that's a big question for me. I do have a lot going on, as I sort of put it. There is a lot going on. So yeah, just to really, and I really want to raise awareness of some of these points as well. So the condition that I've had for the longest period of time is called muscular dystrophy, and basically what muscular dystrophy is, it's a muscle wasting condition. It's a genetic condition, so anyone can get it. I'm not going to try and explain the science of it because even I don't understand that part. but essentially it's a very rare condition as well. And there's lots of different forms of muscular dystrophy. I have Becker's muscular dystrophy, which is a milder form. You do have other forms like Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, which is extremely life limiting. I mean, we're talking about people not even getting to, like, if I think with Duchenne's, if you get over the age of about 20, like mid 20s, if you're lucky, I think that's the life expectancy around that. Obviously, there's a lot of scientific research going on, so hopefully there'll be a day when of course, the life expectancy of someone with muscular dystrophy in particular, that form is improved. So I mean, it basically means over time your muscles get weaker over time, so it gets harder to do things, and sometimes you get to a point where you do need like more resistance. Like for example, about 2 or 3 years ago now, I ended up using a wheelchair, which I think to some people it can have automatic negative connotations. And I think when I was growing up, I certainly had that like negative thing. It was like the most terrifying thing that could possibly happen in my life. But as I've grown older, I've come to realize that it's absolutely not the most terrifying thing. There's a lot scarier stuff that people do have to deal with. So it's getting to a point of acceptance. I think, like with anything, it's just finding that point of acceptance, which I think I'm gradually getting to a point that I've found that. But I'd be lying if I said it's not straightforward. Some days are better than others. I think I wouldn't want to sit here and pretend that I'm absolutely, over the moon about it or anything like that. It's more just an acceptance. But I do feel privileged that I'm able to, of course, talk about it and raise more awareness of it as well, because it is such a rare genetic condition. It just doesn't really get talked about as much. And I think disability, maybe particularly in the LGBTQ community, can sometimes be an area that we as a community do need to work on, not just physical conditions, but other conditions as well.
Yeah, you've been very out about your muscular dystrophy diagnosis, and I think that's one of the reasons that so many people respond to you, because you have been so upfront about it. And as someone who is quote unquote New World born, not British born, I always admire that sense, that stereotype of British pluck. Keep on keeping on, pour a cup of tea. You just seem to take it all in stride. And I wonder if there are other listeners and readers and people who follow you on social media who've also reached out to you to say, Sam, you've really helped me deal with my own muscular dystrophy or other issues. Because I believe also, I mean, as far as your mental health, this can also be a strain dealing with this in such an out forum. I mean, you have tens of thousands of people around the world who tune in to listen to your unique perspective. What is your viewership and your audience like as far as their response?
Yeah, and it's been incredible. Like, I still can't believe that people want to like sit sometimes even 2-3 times a week and listen to me talk. But there you go. Strange things happen. But I mean, yeah, it's been amazing. That's the thing that really makes it worthwhile. I mean, you can have thousands of listeners or whatever, you can have fantastic metrics, but the thing that really matters to me the most is that human connection. And even just one person getting in contact and saying, oh, I have a similar physical condition, or I'm so happy that you've mentioned that we need to talk more about disability within the community, make sure that our safe spaces are accessible, which is one thing I think really needs to be addressed. Because I mean, in society in general, it's it's not an LGBTQ community thing whatsoever, but in society in general, accessibility is quite poor. I would really rate it, certainly in this country. Obviously, it depends country to country, but certainly here, I don't think it's where it should be at all. We've got a very long way to go, though there has been a lot of improvement. But yeah, people have contacted me and said, and even not about me, mainly it's about the guests that we have on. Someone will contact me and said, I've been feeling the same way as that guest, and I couldn't put a word to it. I didn't have a definition, but they've basically been talking about how I feel that's what they've said, and they've said now I finally have not a label, but just a way that they can understand themselves and a way to help others understand them as well.
Yeah, one of the things I enjoy about your Twitter feed, and as you know, I follow it religiously, is it's not just about quote unquote LGBT. It's you and your whole universe and your whole worldview. I mean, obviously, for the last 3 weeks, we've been talking about Russia and Ukraine. I'm pretty sure that if the Prime Minister of Great Britain doesn't follow you, I'm pretty sure someone on his press team does, because you've been quite out and upfront about your views of the Prime Minister. Do you have anything you'd like to say to Mr. Johnson at the moment?
How long have you got? I mean, that is a loaded question, that one as well. I just he always gets away with it. That is the annoying thing about our Prime Minister. It doesn't matter the amount of sleaze, it doesn't matter the amount of lies, he always survives anything. It is so frustrating. It is ridiculous how frustrating it is. And in a way, of course, the situation in Ukraine is absolutely dire. It's absolutely horrendous. Absolutely. I mean, you can't even put into words how awful it is. War in Europe in 2022. Still can't believe it. And I think that's how a lot of people feel as well. But in terms of Boris Johnson, it's come along at just the right time. He must be absolutely lapping it up, to be quite honest with you, though he has all the words of, being somber. And I don't believe any of it's like sincere, which is an awful thing to say about anyone, because we're talking about people's lives. But, it's particularly awful when it comes to Boris Johnson. But I just don't trust a word he says. I really do not trust him. And in terms of this country's response, in terms of refugees, it's been absolutely appalling, to be quite honest. The lack of humanity is completely unbelievable, but that's just the Conservative Party appealing to a very right-wing majority, which they've managed to get the support of because of the Brexit vote, essentially. So they're thinking more about their electoral prospects than they are about helping suffering people. So, yeah. I'm going to stop there, though. I don't want to
No, that's all right.
say I'm saying too much.
Two of my other good friends in the UK, fellow writers, Lucinda Hawksley, an author and biographer, also the great granddaughter of Charles Dickens, and of course someone we both know and admire very well, Armistead Maupin, author of Tales of the City, and his husband Christopher Turner live in London. I think besides those three people, you're definitely another person who's going to be voting Labour. So enough of that.
Well, I mean, what's the alternative is my view. And I think that's another thing about our politics. It's just, I mean, you feel you don't have a choice. The two-party systems, it's just, it feels like you don't really have a choice at elections. I've just felt I've voted Labour as it's better than the Conservatives kind of vote, rather than any kind of passion for the Labour Party, though. In terms of the Labour leadership, Sir Keir Starmer is a darn sight better than Jeremy Corbyn. So yes, if there was a general election, I would vote for Labour.
Yeah, well, as my grandmother used to say when I was a young boy, if you took a Republican and you took a Democrat and you put them in a wet bag and shook them up, I don't know who'd fall out first, but I do tell you this, Republicans are just mean. So I'll leave it at that for the end of this political discussion. In our last few moments, I have two more questions. The first one is, what is more of a challenge for you? Being quote unquote out about your muscular dystrophy, or being out as an openly gay media person?
I would say being openly gay, to be honest. I mean, are we talking about that from a sense of discrimination, or what in what context?
In whichever way you want to take that answer, from it, whether it's discrimination or just your viewership, which is more of a challenge, presenting that public face a public face of someone who's living with muscular dystrophy or someone whose public face is living as an LGBT media person? Because you have quite a potent following.
Yeah, it's a hard question because I can give different answers based on different contexts. But I think in the whole, I would say being openly gay. I would say that anyway. I think I've felt I have faced discrimination being disabled, but I've faced much more discrimination in terms of being gay. I mean, very recently, only a year ago, my former next door neighbor, former, I say, thank God, I experienced some horrendous homophobic abuse from that person. So that's in real life. Things happen in real life still, and but in terms of, yeah, I would say being openly gay is by far much more difficult. I would say, in terms of being open about it publicly.
Right. So in our last few moments, tell me and tell my viewers and your viewers what you want them to take away from being LGBT. What, after you finish an interview or a post, do you want to leave people with? What, I guess in short, the way they would say it in the United States corporate speak, what is your mission? What is your vision statement for being LGBT?
Well, our slogan is "Where all voices matter," and I think that just hits at the heart of it, really. Just those 4 words. Just want to make sure that everyone feels included, make sure everybody feels visible, and make sure everybody knows that they matter. Because I think as human beings, I think one of the most awful things that you can feel is that you don't matter, really. And to be made feel like your voice doesn't matter, what you've got to say doesn't matter, because it certainly does. And I used to be so shy, and I used to think that who cares what I've got to say? And I mean, sometimes that can still crop its ugly head up at some point as well. But I really want people to get that message, and I really want it to be about LGBTQ, like, community solidarity. So to listen to each other. So not just a gay man listening to a gay man, or a lesbian listening to a lesbian, but to bring that all together and educate ourselves on all of us. And I think that is just so important. I'm a big believer in community solidarity, that's for sure, because the last thing we want is for that solidarity to rupture, because once it starts with transphobia, then that opens the door to everything else. So I really think that's really important.
Well, I think the short answer is to how many people want to listen to a gay man from the UK who's openly gay and asking for all voices to be heard. I think at least 20,000 people want to listen, and I think more and more. It's a growing podcast. We will post the link, but for people who are listening in right now, how can they find you?
I also want to say it's more the guests speaking, just to put that in there, that little disclaimer. It's about the guests. But yes, please do. BeingLGBTQ.com. You can go there. I've just archived all of our episodes. Basically, there's over 200, and there's categories as well. So if you want to learn about the transgender community, the asexual community, non-binary, you can just click, and there's all the categories there. I'm mentioning that because it took me absolutely ages and I want it to be worth it. And you can also follow us at Being LGBTQ Pod on Twitter and on Instagram. I'm rubbish on Instagram, so more followers on there would be nice.
Great. Well, Sam, it's a great pleasure speaking with you. As I say, we have a lot of things on our Twitter feed to deal with, and yours popped up several months ago for me, and I'm so glad it did, and I hope a lot of other people will. This is David Eugene Perry. We've been speaking with Sam Wise, founder of Being LGBT. We look forward to speaking to you next time, and please follow Sam and his podcast, his Instagram, and his Twitter feed online. Ahoy.